All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. On our call today, we'll be walking through some of the reports in the CEJA reporting system, and we'll have Q&A at the start and at the tail end as well. I did want to note a couple of issues and updates that we have currently. At the moment, some navigators have reported seeing in the plan versus actual report that zeros are coming back for all their numbers. And that, I believe, is tied to an issue where the work plans are, for navigators specifically, the work plans, once submitted, are not displaying on that tab. And so I think the system is a little confused when it looks at those, and trying to pull back those numbers, and it's showing zero. So I think that's why. But we do have an update that should resolve the work plans for navigators not showing. And I believe that in turn will, solve that issue there. But we'll keep you updated once we have that update out. So I wanted to note that, and then also there seems to be an issue for when accessing the CEJA system. This is test, but in the production environment, trying to access this customer list page here and seeing an error message, and the customer list doesn't load. Our programmer is currently working on that issue, and once we have an update for that, we'll send a note out to all the grantees and navigators. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to note? I think that's all I wanted to mention before we got started. But with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to if there's any questions about the system or any questions that you might have.
Hello, David.
Hi.
Hi, this is Juan Calajorando with Lewis University, navigator for Joliet Junior College. What's been happening the last couple of days is when I inputted data, I uploaded participants' information or applicants' information into the CEJA system. I see them there, and it just basically stuff that has been to upload to. So I just want to put the basic information. When I try to retrieve it, it doesn't show me anything. It shows me they're in the system, but I'm not able to view anything at all. And I did check with JJC, and they did tell me they had those individuals on their system. So, but I can't see them. So I wanted to continue and update the information, add up all the information that I gathered for those applicants, but I'm not able to see anything at all. I'm not able to access them at all.
Okay, so when you're saying you're adding, are you adding them kind of manually like this, or is it through the upload, with the spreadsheet?
The upload.
The upload
Yeah,
over
the
here.
upload. That's what I did. It just asks you the basic information, right? The name, I think it's address, and maybe the date of birth and phone number.
Yeah.
That's what I upload. Yeah.
Yeah, we might have to connect offline because it might be, maybe a different provider. Well, yeah, if you want to submit a help request ticket with
Okay.
that, yeah, and just list some of those names, I can take a look at the customers and make sure, that you're, able to see them.
Yeah, and I know if it is somebody who's already in the system, it'll tell me this is a duplicate. That person's already in the system. I see that. And in the past, I was able to upload them, and I'll be able to see those individuals. And if I want to go to the next step and add the information or anything like that, I was able to do that, but not right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, if you want to, yeah, just let me know, you could even send, that uploaded spreadsheet and I can take a closer look and, hopefully something was just, tagged wrong and not, there's a larger issue with the system, but that'll, be a good starting point to, troubleshoot the issue.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions? All right. Well, if anything comes up, you can add them in the chat, and we'll also have Q&A at the end. But we'll go ahead and get started by looking at some of the reports in the system. So let's see where to start. So let's start with the CEJA dashboard over here. So in this dashboard dropdown, we have CEJA. When we open this up here, filter to our customer information. I'm logged in as ClimateWorks, but this should look the same for all users in the system. We won't go through all of these rows, but for the purposes of this dashboard report, you can see where all of your customers are at a glance, and what steps and actions may be needed. I believe just looking at this, if they're in the row for green, that means good. There's no further action needed for that item. Yellow and red, we do flag, and we have some info bubbles here on kind of defining which what the criteria is for customers to appear in this row, and what next steps might be needed. I do want to point out this first one here for respond to transfer requests. It looks like I don't have any for this grantee, but if a grantee or navigator submits a transfer request, you should receive an email, but with email settings, it might go to spam or junk. But just please be sure to check this first row here, because there may be a customer in your list who wants to enroll with a different provider and grantee, and they're trying to add them into the system, and they'll send a request to the existing record in your list to transfer that over there. And so when you click this number here, it's a 0, so we're not going to see anybody. We would see the names of those customers, and we can respond to them with the accepting or denying the transfer request. So just wanted to point that one out here. But you can kind of see with these yellow and red, follow-up is past due, customers who are still in an inquiry status, pre-screening hasn't been complete in 30 days. If we click next steps, it's just letting us know to proceed to complete the application and indicate either do not contact or complete the application. And we have that for the different sections, in the customer's profile. So we have, the intake process, looking at, the application, career assessments, service needs assessments, showing, are these items complete, not complete? Are they've been sitting out there, for, 10 days or more, just to, go ahead and, complete that. We also have referrals, just kind of showing, the status of them, if it's been sent. If in the service needs assessment, we indicated that we were going to send a referral but did not. Or, if it's been open for more than 10 days, we haven't, we don't have a response, and so forth. The next section we have is for services. So, customers who have one or more services identified in the service needs assessment that still needs to be addressed. So on that progress page, let's take a look here. So we click that number, we'll see the list of customers who meet that criteria. And what this row is looking at would be, let's see here. Maybe that wasn't a good example customer. We might need to make a tweak, because I think it's looking at, because essentially what this row is looking at is, looking at, a cost needs to be added. And it looks like, I just want to make a note of this for a future update. Update the logic there. But what this is looking at is, customers who don't yet have a item in their service needs assessment, yeah, like here, we don't have a cost, associated to, added to a wraparound service. So that's what, this row is looking at here. And then let's see, so that's kind of the section for wraparound support services. And then here's our other career plan services, primarily training services, where the customers are. And then a breakdown of credentials earned or who have not earned, and completion information, who's in progress, completed, exited, who's withdrawn. And then we have a breakdown of our transition outcomes, where all of our customers fall. And then program follow-up once exited, just following up and leaving a case note in the system for these different time intervals here. So that's the dashboard. Let's see, next, I think we'll go to, how about the work plan and reports section? Okay, so in our work plan, got a bunch submitted here already, but we'll go ahead and select Zion. Looks like we only have one. But if we didn't have a work plan here, we can filter to the grantee or subgrantee or navigator, subnavigator, and submit a work plan, or sorry, project plan. And we'll click the button to submit. And then we'll just need to fill out the sections here. So in project narrative, in these drop downs, we can select our staff here. The names you'll see, these will just be your team members who have access to the system. So if you don't see them in this drop down, then they don't have access to CEJA. But you can make the selections here for the different staff members, and you can enter in the project overview. Enter text in here. And the next section is activities and outcomes. And so we have these different items here for outreach and partnership, service delivery, characteristics, transition outcomes. And we'll just enter in our plan numbers for each of these items here. So once we get these in, then we can open up training programs, and then we can see the training programs we've added into the system through the grantee details section. If we don't see our program here, we can we can edit the program. We can click that button to access this page here and continue adding the program. And that'll show up here. And then lastly, we have cohorts for here. I'm wondering why some of these dates here showing. I believe they pre-populate, but maybe that's just the default here. Yeah, it looks like it. So we can add cohorts to our grantee, or sorry, to our work plan here. And so we're logged in as Climate Works, so we can select the cohort type, the capacity, the start date of our cohort, and the end date. Select our provider, and then if there's any additional notes we want to add, we can enter them here. See, the cohort's been updated, and okay, so yeah, that information does populate in there. It looks like we might need to enter this in again since we didn't submit it initially. Just fill in these numbers here. Okay, so once we have our cohorts and all this information filled in, we can click save, and then it will be stored in the system. Click OK, and we can see the status of it. Once the your regional administrator approves it, it'll show as approved. Come back here and see. Let's see here. Yeah, our work plan right here has been entered. And next we'll go to our reports tab here. And this has several different reports for CEJA. So if we open some of these up, we have the cohort report. So let's take a look here. So we are ClimateWorks, and our grantee is Zion, the one that we added here. We can see the cohort information that we entered in that work plan pull through here. And once we enroll customers into that cohort on their intake page, we'll see, the number here populate. And if we click, cohort 1, we'll just see that information that we entered here. But yeah, you can filter through several different ways, the program here by grantee, by the type of cohort, and a date range as well, which is looking at cohorts where the start and end dates fall within, the date range that we've entered in our search results here. And we can also export this as well. All right, next we have the cost report. And so this allows you to look at the, let's see here, costs that have been added to services in the customer's career plan. So let's see, let's look at the wraparound support service. So when we filter this here, community partnerships, that probably has more than, okay, yeah, here we go. Looks like we don't have any costs for customers in Zion, but once we can search by the service and even a customer name, and we'll see this table here that will show who the provider is. Each row has a customer with one individual cost. So we can see here in this case, this customer on the wraparound support service, they have 3 costs here, and this is just kind of showing all of these at once. It'll include all the information that we enter when adding a cost on the dollar value of service tab, and we'll see what the cost type was, how much, how often, the total, the dates, how's it paid by, which member in the system added it, when it was last updated. And we can, if we click this edit icon here, this should take us to right to the service here. Yep, so we can see those 3 costs here. For quick reference, if we see that maybe it wasn't actually $20, it was 25, or we can manage that here.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
I just wanted to flag, I've been messing around with a couple of these reports lately, and had an observation on this one, as well as I believe the customer service report, that if you run it for the main grantee, it's only pulling the main grantee instead of like all of the sub grantees into it. So these reports don't appear to roll up like our participant numbers do, and just wanted to flag that for you.
Okay. Yeah, we can take a look at that for both of those reports here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
And then I guess for folks on the call to just know, if you're trying to run it for your grant, make sure you, for now at least, separately run each sub grantee as its own report.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a good observation. We'll have to take a look at that. The customer service report. Let's see, we'll filter this here. And let's just pull this back. So we can select, CEJA and our grantee group here. And this is going to pull back all of the services that we've added to, all our customers, career plans. And we can see, kind of where that status is. So we, it's just been added, they haven't started it. Have they started it? Is it complete, unsuccessful, complete, evaluated, not required? we can, select that. So, for example, if we look at this one here for assistance with completing an apprenticeship program application, we'll click this here, and this will take a look at those 2 customers who have started that service. And if we wanted to, make a change to them, maybe they both successfully completed it. If we need to update the dates or hours, we can do so. But when we update the status here, oh, it looks like we got to enter in the actual end date. So let me plug that in. So we'll save that here. And if we go back here, we should see this 2. You'll move over to the next column here. And we can now see those 2 customers have that service completed. So you can kind of manage services through this report here. If you wanted to enter it in for several customers at once, rather than manually and individually going in and updating them. And then we also have 2 columns for just identifying the customers who have these services, and then customers who do not have the service. So maybe, let's see here. Which one do I want to select? So maybe, if we needed to add, let's see, clean energy basics, for example, we can click these 51. These are the customers who do not have it. And we can, make these changes here. So let's just enter in our dates and our hours, and then click save. So then we should see, those 2 customers now have the service. So we should see this flip to both of these being 49. Energy basics, yep. So then we can see that those 2 customers now have that service. So yeah, that's a helpful way if you want to make sure your customers have a specific service in mind. And let's see, is there anything else? You can export it. You can through here filter by further. We take a look at Zion. Yeah, probably don't have too much data and UAT for them. But yeah, you can export it. You can search by date range, and this would be looking at, if in the date range, any services that have a start and end date in this range, they would filter here. Yeah, it looks like we just have those 2 that we probably just haven't. All right, so that's the customer services report. Next, we have the demographics report for, let's see, ClimateWorks here. So if we filter to grantee, and if we wanted to filter further for sub-grantee, we can. And then we'll select time frame, and then we can select different performance measures here for enrollment, training completion, apprenticeship placement, or everything. We can bring all of them back. And if we click filter here, we'll see that the report, this table will load here with all of our customers. So we're looking at, in this column, those who are applicants. And then in this column, those are, customers who are enrolled. And yeah, we can just see the breakdown. So we have demographics enrollment, and our training completion numbers, and apprenticeship placement. And then, selecting these hyperlinks will then load the customer list for, the customers who meet that criteria there. All right, the navigator report. I think this is, this is essentially the same, but for navigators, and then same for workforce hubs. Let's see. So those are other demographic reports for CEJA. programs, the narrative report. In the narrative report, we can add this here. So we can make a selection for provider and search, and we can see the reports that have been added. And if we need to add a new one, and click Add Report, we can select the calendar year and which quarter that we're adding it for. So let's say first quarter for January, and then we can just fill in the different sections here. Fill in for, let's see, summary of grant progress, activities, barriers and technical assistance needs, accomplishments and success stories, and a link to the success story submission. Expected accomplishments for next month and quarter and additional information. This is for, just want to make sure, yeah, January. So we can click Save. You see it's been saved. At the bottom here, we can see that we've added it here. And then when we go to click it, we can see this is quarter one, but now this is selected to February. So then we can enter February's. We can add in, the narrative for these different sections for the month of February. And if we wanted to see, what we entered for the past ones, we can just click this, show January, and we can see what we've entered here. We can click Save. If we go back here, it should say March. Yep. And then we can see January's placeholder, February. So we can see, at a glance, what we entered in the previous narrative portions here. And so since we filled out all the ones for quarter one, we're not able to submit any more. Oh, it looks like I just copied that over. And then if we go back to, here, we're adding, the next report for, let's see, 2026. And if we tried to select, oh, okay, never mind. Might be thinking of something else. But then we can, continue our submissions for, the subsequent quarters and months. Okay. Let's see, next we have success stories admin. That's really going to be for, okay, no, this links to our, success story guide here, where, we just get an overview of, presentations, tips, different handouts for, writing a success story. Since I am in production, I won't go too far into this, but customers can submit a success story through here. They'll need to log into their account with workNet. Same for employers if, those stories are going to be submitted. But I feel like for the most part, success stories when submitted are, through, on behalf of the customer. So, grantees or navigators can come in here to submit a success story. And we have options for customers, employer, or, maybe a partnership here. A community story is really for the Apprenticeship Illinois program. So I would, maybe recommend not selecting that template. But if we click search for customer, we can then look them up by their username in workNet or their name and click search. And then it will, display, a table of customers you have access to just to, make sure it's, for the right customer. And I'm just going to click this just for demonstration purposes. But yeah, it would look like this once, if it was me. I was the customer you're submitting a success story for. You could, their name and information will populate, and then you can just update, the address information here, story info. We have our different CEJA programs that we can select from. And we can fill in the rest of the information here. And then we can enter a title for the story and then the narrative portion here. And then we do require a photo be submitted for the success story. If maybe the customer really didn't want their photo. What grantees and other programs in the past have done have, just uploaded, their organization's logo. So that's an option too. And then we just have the terms of use agreement, which you can accept and click save to submit the story. And we do have staff who review the submitted success stories 1 or 2 times a week. So it shouldn't, be pending, once it's been submitted for too long. Let's see, then we have the work plan, which we went over. And then I think the only other report to look at is our plan versus actual. So we'll go there. And let's see, so we are logged in as ClimateWorks grantee. So we'll select our, actually let's select Zion, and then we can select the time frame we're looking at. So if we click all, that's just going to pull back, everything. Calendar year and quarter, we can select, which year, which quarter, and then we also have a custom date range that you can look at. But if we click all and filter, take a minute to load here. We can see once the table does load, our different, activities and outcomes. For each of those activities, how many, were entered in the system the previous quarter, how many are planned overall, and then where, the numbers currently are. And so for outreach and partnerships, we have outreach events delivered, inquiry contacts added, partners added. And if we want to see, for a lot of these sections, breakdown, we can see, our different outreach types here, different partner types. For service delivery, we are pulling back how many applicants, how many are enrolled, how many have completed. And then if we look at completers, how many, by training program or provider, and cohorts, which it looks like we don't have any cohorts entered, or customers tied to cohorts for this example and test. Characteristics, customers who are in an EJC and or R3 community, persons who are formerly incarcerated, and foster care system members or graduates. And then we have our different transition outcomes listed here. And the items that are captured, they do differ a little bit. I know we have the ClimateWorks one, the workforce hubs does have different transition outcomes and characteristics included in here as well. So there may be some differences, across, the programs there, but, you can see at a glance, where the numbers are for these items. Okay, let's see here. Are there any other reports I want to go over? I don't believe so. Let's see. Yeah, I think that I was making sure. I know we got a lot of reports across our programs here. Yeah, I think that kind of covers all the reports for CEJA. I know I went through some of them, pretty quickly. Just wanted to highlight, where they are, what they are, and how you can utilize them. But are there any questions about any of the reports that we have in the system? Okay, looks like we got one. Oh, go ahead.
They could sign up without.
David, just wondered, I don't know if you covered this, that customer service report, is that going to basically pull, I don't know, like placeholders? Is it going to pull based on all of the services that grantee offers? And I'm asking because I'm trying to figure out if pulling that report will kind of like slot every participant in the system for that grantee into whichever services are assigned to it. I'm just trying to make sure it's like comprehensive, that everybody who has a service is represented on that report somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if we pull back, if we just keep the search to, the provider, or, grantee navigator, or sorry, grantee, it'll pull back all of the services. So, let's say, for instance, maybe nobody had alumni networking. I don't believe that would show up in this list.
Okay.
But yeah, because then I think when I did a filter search for over here, it was pulling back just the one, where we added those 2 customers to that service. So yeah, the report is, the customer service report is looking, comprehensively. I do see a question in the chat here. For adding service activity question, what should be selected to add the service activity of TABE testing for participants? Pre-testing service prior to the start of training. We've currently been using instructional service. It's a good question. Let me just pull back our services list here. Yeah, we might need
And we
to.
may
Yeah,
we
go
may
ahead.
need to. I was gonna say we may need to huddle on that one, because that could be different for navigators compared to the hubs. Because if we start a service, then they're enrolled, and so I just want to be careful how we answer that question as it relates to navigators.
Yeah. And we can add, let's see here. Let's say I was looking at this customer here. Go back. Because we can record the scores without necessarily tying it to a service. So if we go to this review assessment tab in the career plan, and then we go to this more assessment section, let's say we can search for assessments here. Let's say, we're looking at TABE here. We can select the test, and a lot of this, will pre-fill, so then we can just enter in some information here for assessment date, the test level, the grade level equivalent, the scale score, the results, and how it was delivered. And we do have, this guidelines chart here, which if I open, this will kind of break down, here's the grade, here's the scale score range, for the different types of TABE tests here. And then you can click save. And that gets recorded here. And if we need to go back and make any changes to it, we can do so here. And yeah, that would be recorded in the system, but it wouldn't necessarily be tied to a service. And we can, we may need to talk more internally to see if that's sufficient, or if we do need to tie it to a service. So yeah, we'll add that to our agenda there.
Cool. Yeah, I think what you've provided is good, and then the grantees should do that, and then if we add some functionality to be able to track that as a service, we'll let you know. But I would say just do what David just showed there.
Okay. So yeah, that's under the career plan, the review assessment tab, and then below all these assessments here, more assessments. You can search for. Yeah, looks like we do need to enter a keyword, but yeah, there's lots of different assessments here. I'm not sure exactly how many, but there's TABE, CASAS, yeah, a lot of assessments that you can search for here and record that way. Good question. All right, are there any other questions or anything else you'd like for us to cover on the call today?
Got a question for you, David.
Yeah.
This is Larry. Thinking about monthly reports since that time is coming around the corner next week. With regard to participants that are transferred from one hub to another, maybe midway through the process, a person has completed a bridge, for instance, and then they're transferred to another hub. Does that person as a number come off the applicant and enrolled stats for the sending grantee?
I believe they would come off. Yeah.
Okay, because maybe it's something we can talk further about, but just had a meeting and we're just discussing how a person who has had, stipend, some area reduction applied, and then they're transferred. So I'm just wondering about being able to attribute costs to a person who was effectively, I don't know, disappeared from the record.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a way. We'd have to talk with our programmers, but I think there might be a way where, in that case, that we could tie, that, cost or service to the, original provider. I think based on when you're editing a service, um, the service provider that's selected. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity to make that update. I'll have to see if what we're using in one program can be applied here, and how that might pull into reports. But yeah, I can follow up on that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question, David. This is Jenny with UCM.
Yeah.
So we had the situation this week where an applicant wanted to enroll into a different program, so he was dropped from another program so he can enroll. Is there any way we can do that without contacting you guys?
I know we have a health ticket on this. Let's see here. And we might need to add this to our agenda as well internally, but the case was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like with one of the customers, they had completed and perhaps even been exited from, let's say a Climate Works program. And you were trying to add them to, I think, either another Climate Works program or a Workforce Hubs program. And the system was saying they're already in the system. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. So if they're already in the system for one program and then you want to move them someplace else, then you get an error.
Yeah. This might, because yeah, we might need to talk more internally about that because, on one hand, let's see here, let me pull this up. So yeah, let's look at someone who's maybe complete here. So yeah, if we had, Bridget here, who was complete with Climate Works. If they were going to be added to another program, on one hand, you could, I think, technically, do a transfer, but I think that's going to take away from some of the reporting numbers, which I don't think we want. And yeah, if we tried to add, bridge it again, it would, say they're already in the system.
We tried to do the transfer. That's what we did at first, but it kept telling us error.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the system's looking at like, well, they're already in the system here.
I think
Yeah.
if they've already completed a program, I think we would want them to be reevaluated for eligibility with the idea of like, okay, if they've already completed a program and gotten a credential, and that's kind of,
They
they're having their.
he stopped halfway through. Yeah, he stopped halfway through. He's dropped. So he wanted
Okay.
to do a B program. So we're like, okay, we can transfer you, but we couldn't. So
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, David, maybe something there on the transfer piece, some kind of error, something happened there. Because I mean, we want to make sure that the receiving grantee, or both grantees, I guess, right, are kind of aware of what's happening, because we've had several situations where students have said, oh yeah, I want to go to that other program, but then they retain, they continue participating in the original program. And so we want to make sure that both programs know that one student is leaving and showing up in a different program. But yeah, David, it sounds like might be an error on the transfer piece there.
Yeah, and if I recall too, looking at that ticket, I think there might have even been a third record in the system. So I think to some degree we might have to do a little bit of account cleanup. But yeah, we'll have to take a closer look and see what we can do there.
thank you.
Yeah. Julie,
My
I see you
question,
got your
yeah,
hand.
my question is related to all this conversation. So, I do think that my experience has been that when you transfer from one to another, it does take it out of the other person's system altogether from other ones I've done. But I have a student that I just got transferred yesterday, successful transfer, and after the transfer, I found out that the student had actually completed the job specific training there for one program, and then they were wanting to come here. I was under the understanding they'd only done the bridge, but then I found out after he transferred everything over that he's already done another program. We can't let them enroll in another program if they've already gotten one certification from us. Is that correct?
Nate, Larry.
Our position on that is generally that we want to try to ensure that before folks get a second opportunity at training to quote unquote kind of double major, if you will, that other folks have had an opportunity for a first chance. And so as Nate mentioned earlier, to do kind of a reassessment of the person's eligibility, just to make sure that they are because we're trying to remove barriers. And if a person has already obtained a certification and gone through a training, have they attempted to do job search, and how does that relate to their kind of continued eligibility? We don't have an explicit prohibition of people coming back for another training area, but we just want to try to ensure that discussion's been had to make sure that they have tried to market themselves for the training they've already received, and to
Okay.
look at the backlog that you have of people trying to get training now.
Yes. Okay. I've advised him that way and offered to give him assistance since he's up in our area now for job search. So I'll continue to work with him in that area and follow your suggestions. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, David. This is Joy Stanford. So
Hi, Joy.
I'm just going to piggyback off of what Julie was saying, because what I found in the CEJA policy, and you're right, it doesn't really give a black or white answer. It just says the official policy states that participants who exist in the program may return to the same or another CEJA program, but would just need to reapply or re-enroll. So there is no yes or no answer. It's just case by case, and we will just base that on need, for lack of better words.
Yep. So part of that reapplication would be reevaluating the barriers that would be addressed by the the continued training, and yeah, their prioritization compared to other folks who haven't taken training yet.
All right, got a few minutes left. Are there any other questions while we're on the call here? All right, well, if not, we'll go ahead and end early. I will get the recording posted to our, the Climate Works Guide, the upcoming sessions webinar. Looks like we'll need to update the calendar here. And I did get a note from our programmer that if on that customer list page, you're receiving the data table error message, we should have an update out for that shortly. So that should be resolved soon. And with that, we'll go ahead and end our call. Thank you all for joining and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.